Improvising guitar solos is not really complicated. Learning to improvise guitar solos means we learn how to effectively reuse lead guitar riffs and assemble them or reassemble them into a musical statement. And that's what we're learning right now in the chop shop. Hi, I'm Bonar. I'm a Canadian guitar player, and this is the Chop Shop. This is a practical 3-step method. Step 1, we learn some of your favorite riffs. Step 2, we learn to make those riffs movable so we can reuse them. And then step 3, we learn to assemble those same riffs into musical guitar solos. In chapter 1, we learned how to play some lead guitar riffs. In chapter 2, we looked at moving riffs around into different keys and different locations on the neck. This is chapter 3. We're going to look at how we assemble our riffs into something musical. Also, after today's exercise, I'm going to demonstrate something I call the arc of the solo. This is a tool we use to give the solo shape, drama, and a sense of musical direction. So stick around to the end, because creating a solo with an arc is really the difference between creating interesting music and just noodling. This is a solo over a 6-4-1-5 chord progression, A minor, F, C, and G. Super popular progression in pop and singer-songwriter material today, really since the 90s. Let's have a quick look at the solo. As you can see in the diagram, I wrote little notes above each transplanted riff to keep track of its source. So the first couple of beats of measure 1 is Angus, then John Mayer, then Clapton, then Don Felder and Tony Iommi at the end. Let's dive in. Here's measure 1, and as we go through this, grab your guitar and play along with me. This first little bit here is kind of a generic pickup. You'll hear it at the beginning of hundreds of solos. Here I'm crediting it to Angus. We're using the first 3 notes of Chop 11, which is the beginning of the solo break in Back in Black. Okay, that's the first bit. And this is where it came from. This is clip 3. This is Chop 11 from Angus. Okay, where am I here? Okay, in order to bring this into the right key signature for our solo, which is A minor, we're moving this riff from a starting point of E minor. So it was on the 5th fret, we're taking it to the 10th fret. Next we have another basic glue kind of riff taken from John Mayer's solo in Wheel. It's a kind of a sweep type of idea. Okay, this is the second section. This is a John Mayer riff from a solo from Wheel. This is that's Chop 17, and here's the section from the solo. The riff was originally in A major, which is equivalent to F sharp minor. And again, we have to move this into A minor, because that's the key our new solo is in. Next, we have a very tasty little tidbit we borrowed from the tackle box of Mr. Eric Clapton. So that's the original, and here's the section that shows up in measure 3 in the solo. Okay. This riff was also originally in F sharp minor, and again we must move this into A minor because that's the key our new solo is in. As you'll notice, as I demonstrate the source riff against the version I've used, I take a lot of liberties with these riffs. I trim off extra notes and change them in whatever way I need to make them fit perfectly into my solo. So that's what you want to do. We're not really just quoting riffs. Okay, so here now we're in measure 5. We're using a Don Felder riff from the solo from One of These Nights. So this is original Chop 13 from Don Felder. Okay, that's Chop 13, and here's what that became in the solo. That's basically all I used. The riff was originally in E minor, and we have to move this into A minor. And again, you'll notice the original version and the eventual version are quite a bit different. My method for doing this, my practical method for doing this, is to first bring the old riff into the correct key signature and then play with it. I usually put on a backing track and I jam the riff as I'm recycling, and I make small changes. Sometimes the riff you end up with will be very different from what you started with, and that's okay. Trust your ears. When it sounds right to you, it's right. An important point, when you are jamming and you come up with a new variation or a riff, record it, tab it out, record it on a phone, do something. If it catches your ear and you think this is a good riff, then you want to capture it and put it into your back pocket, use it again. So now on to measure 6 and 7, and what we're doing here now is quoting Tony Iommi from the solo we're quoting Tony Iommi from the solo from Iron Man. Okay, and here's the last section. I'm hoping I can see what I'm doing here. Here's the last section of the solo. Okay. And again, the original version and the eventual version we used are quite different. I will mention when I'm adapting riffs, I do try to keep the most distinctive basics of the original riff if I can. Other than that, I'm happy to mash it up as I need to. So that brings us to the end of the solo. We're going to wrap up now, but stick around because we're going to talk very briefly about the arc of a solo, and that's a very powerful tool. You don't want to miss it. So today we took a handful of great riffs and we reassembled them into a solo. There are so many reasons you want to do this exercise as often as you can, with different riffs creating different solos. It's a super powerful method to very rapidly improve your solos and improve your lead playing altogether. You will learn and internalize a bunch of great riffs, and you will build the ability to add them to your playing whenever and however you want. To quickly recap, the chop shop method is learn some riffs. Learn to make those riffs portable. In other words, learn to move them around on your guitar. And then finally, step 3, learn to assemble those same riffs into solos. And that's all there is to it. But it does take a little practice, so you need to work at it. So let's have a look at the arc of your solo. Let's have a look at the tab on its own. We want to pay attention to where phrases start and end and how we move from one phrase to the next. We start at beat 1 on the 10th fret on the A string, and we work our way up in pitch to the 13th fret of the B string by the end of the second measure. If we just ignore the riffs in between, these notes are destination points of the arc of your solo. So anytime you change direction, you're going up and you stop and come back down, or you're going down and you stop and come back up. Those are destination notes. Those are target notes, and we're playing in between those notes as we go. And you can see the shape if you just look up the contour on the tab. If we just show it as lines rather than notes. Attention to this rough shape of the ascending and descending lines with clear target notes is an easy way to give your solo structure and give your playing a sense of purpose. Just take a blank piece of tab paper, write the changes on it, and then select target notes and sketch in arc lines like the ones we were looking at here. Here you can see the arcs without all the notes, easier to see, and this is a place where you can begin before you even start plugging in riffs. Choose our target notes, we simply use one of the chord tones of either the chord we're coming from or the chord our arc lands on. Try this exercise yourself, either with this progression or with any song you like. Send me an email, I'll send you a PDF with just the chords for this song on it, and you can use the arc and target note idea to create a solo of your own. I'd love to hear what you come up with. Anyway, this brings us to the end of today's episode of Learn to Improvise Guitar Solos with the Chop Shop. If you're finding these lessons helpful, please subscribe to the channel. A PDF of the diagrams from today's episode is available. Just send me an email and I'll send you back a copy of the PDF. I'm Bonar, and I hope you'll visit Bonar Guitar again soon.